last day of Passover, of Pesach, has a very strong connection with the Mashiach, with the Jewish belief in the coming of Messiah. We see that the Baal Shem Tov, HaKadosh, the Baal Shem Tov, the founder of Hasidus, instituted a custom that on the last day of Pesach, we should have a meal late in the afternoon, known as Mashiach's Suda, Mashiach's meal, where we again eat matzah and drink 4 cups of wine. So where do we see, in the Torah, where do we see a strong connection between this day and the idea of Mashiach? The answer is we see it in the Haftorah. You know, on the Sabbath and on every Jewish holiday, we read a section from the Torah, from the 5 books of Moses. And likewise, we read a section from the prophets known as the Haftorah. So the Haftorah for the last day of Passover, for the last day of Pesach, is taken from Isaiah 10, where the prophet Isaiah prophesies about the coming of the Messiah, about the coming of Mashiach. Now the truth is that all the Jewish prophets prophesied about the coming of the Messiah. The prophet Yechezkel spoke about the coming of the Mashiach. The prophet Daniel spoke about the coming of the Messiah. All of them did. But this particular section, Isaiah 10, this is the classic. And the prophet Isaiah 11 goes on to say that Yishai, a man will arise from the house of Yishai. Yishai was the father of King David. V'nocha alav ruach Hashem, and the Spirit of God will rest upon him. Ruach chochma vina, the Spirit of wisdom and understanding. Ruach etza gevura, the Spirit of counsel and strength. Ruach das, the Spirit of knowledge, v'yiras Hashem, and fear of God. And this is talking about the Mashiach, the Messiah, who will come very soon. And then the prophet goes on to talk not only about the Messiah himself, but about the wonderful age of peace and tranquility that the Messiah will usher in. And he goes on to give examples of what the world will be like at that time. And he says, V'gor za'ev im keves, the wolf will lie down with the lamb, and v'aryeh kaboker yochal tevin, the lion, like the ox, shall eat straw. Now Maimonides, the great scholar Maimonides, explains that these are not literal, of course, rather these are allegorical. So what is the meaning of v'gor za'ev im keves, the wolf will lie down with the lamb? The Jewish people are compared to a lamb that is surrounded by 70 wolves. The 70 wolves are the 70 nations of the world, which since the beginning of the exile have persecuted the Jewish people. Down to our present day, we see even today the European Union, the United Nations, even the President of the United States, Barack Obama, all chastising Israel, all attacking Israel, pressuring Israel to give away their land to the so-called Palestinians. The media is full of statements about how Israel is occupying Palestinian territory. Some are even worse. Some go on to say Israel stole the land from the Palestinians. So I want to use this opportunity to put an end to this myth right here and now. First of all, if we go back to the Bible itself, to the book of Genesis, we find in the book of Genesis, God promises Abraham that this is the land, referring to the land of Israel, this is the land that I will give to you and your descendants for an everlasting inheritance. He says this to Abraham. He promises to Abraham not once, but several times in the book of Genesis. Likewise, God makes the same promise to Abraham's son, to Isaac. Again, this is the land that I will give to you and your descendants for an everlasting inheritance. Again, several times. And likewise, God makes the same promise to Abraham's grandson, to Jacob. He again says to Jacob, this is the land that I will give to you and your descendants for an everlasting inheritance. Well, who are the people who are the descendants of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob? That's the Jewish people. The Jewish people are the descendants living today, the living descendants of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Also, historically, Israel could not possibly have stolen the land or occupied the land from the Palestinians because the land never belonged to the Palestinians. We go back to history, we go back to 1967, many of you listening to this day were born after 1967 and don't remember what happened in 1967. But what happened in 1967 is as follows. At that time, Israel was involved in a war against Syria to its north and Egypt to its south, which is referred to as the Six-Day War. And while they were busy battling the Syrians and the Egyptians, Jordan got involved, and Jordan began firing upon Israeli troops. Now Israel was busy, very busy. They were fighting two enemies, one in the north and one in the south. The last thing they wanted was a three-front war. So Israeli Prime Minister at that time, Golda Meir, she sent a message to the King of Jordan, King Hussein, which at that time it was a secret memorandum, but since that time has become public knowledge. And she begged the King of Jordan, she said, we have our hands full. We're fighting the Syrians in the north, the Egyptians in the south. We do not want a war with Jordan. Please stay out of it. We will ignore the fact that your soldiers have fired upon Israeli troops. Please stay out of it. Well, as we know from history, Jordan did not stay out of it. Jordan was very much a part of the attack upon Israel in 1967. And so Israel fought a three-pronged war, and with the help of Hashem, with the help of God, they were victorious. And they defeated the Egyptians, the Syrians, and the Jordanians. Jordan attacked Israel from the area known today as the West Bank. And in defeating the Jordanian troops, Israel took that land from which they had been attacked, and it became part of Israel, and that is the land that we refer to today as the West Bank. This was a war that Jordan became involved in on its own. Israel did not attack Jordan. Israel did not want a war with Jordan. Jordan attacked Israel even after Israel begged them to stay out of it. Now, when you attack another country and there's a war, and you lose the land in the war, that's it. That's too bad. Look out at history. Look at the United States. How did we get all this land? Look at Europe. Look at Germany. Look at France. Look at England. Every time there's a war between two nations and the victor wins the land, that's it. It is the land belongs to the victor, especially in a situation where they were attacked, where they did not attack the other country. They themselves were attacked, as happened in this case. But the point to emphasize is it never belonged to the Palestinians. Prior to 1967, the land belonged to Jordan, which lost it in a war upon attacking Israel. It never belonged to the so-called Palestinians. So Israel is not occupying Palestinian land. Israel is not stealing Palestinian land, because this land never belonged to the Palestinians. Yet we read so much in the media, as I said before, about Israel occupying Palestinian land, Israel stealing Palestinian land. Why is that the case? If, as I just pointed out, it's not even true. The answer is, there's something known as the big lie technique. Joseph Goebbels, Yamach Shemo, was the Nazi minister of propaganda. And he told his fellow Nazis, if you repeat a lie often enough, over and over and over again, that people begin to believe it. And that's what's happened here. We have been reading for the last 40 years the terms occupied Palestinian land, stolen Palestinian land. So it's become an everyday occurrence. If you go over to a 20-year-old college student and ask him about the land, he will tell you Israel is occupying Palestinian land because he doesn't know the history. He only knows what he reads in the paper today. And the paper, the left-wing papers, you open up a New York Times or a Boston Globe or even the left-wing Haaretz paper from Israel, and they keep throwing these terms at us: occupied land, stolen land, occupied Palestinian land. But it's not true. The land never, ever belonged to the Palestinians. So this is what the prophet is telling us. The prophet Isaiah is telling us in Isaiah 11. When the Mashiach will come speedily in our day, V'gor ze'evim keves. So the wolf will lie down with the lamb. At that time, all the nations of the world, the European Union, the United Nations, the United States, even the Arab countries, will acknowledge that the land of Israel belongs to the Jewish people. We hope and pray every day for the coming of Mashiach. And may God send Mashiach now, and may we be worthy, may we celebrate this coming Shabbos together with Mashiach in Jerusalem.